Yeah, Jez, it's great to meet you.
Thanks,
great
guys.
discussion.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah, awesome.
Stay well. And scene. You were talking, I was cleaning out, organizing a bunch of stuff in my office, and I had this little chart, and the axes were the give a damn axis and the willingness to piss people off axis. And
I love that.
I really like it because in the upper right hand quadrant is this idea of radical candor. And without the willingness to piss people off, the other side of it is ruinous empathy. And it was just I'm pretty sure it's from a book called Radical Candor that like I lifted it from, but like I had sort of created it and I had it on my desk for a period of time when I had sort of like a Halliburton office. I spend more time at home these days, but it just reminded me when you were saying sort of that yeah, kind of that
I'll check that out.
that actually giving a shit about the individual is such an important element in getting relevant things, new novel things done
That are beneficial and helpful. Yeah. That's cool. No, I hadn't heard of that like little framework before, but I want to check it out. Give a shit and be willing to piss people off.
I kind of love that. I mean, it's true. I feel like in my reality, it's constant. People don't like to be their thinking challenged. People don't, I mean, it's like people take words sometimes as fluff, but it's
Right.
like if you demystify the fluff, like words matter, like they mean something. And that's what's been on my mind a lot recently is, you know, a lot of things that I think about and I talk about are challenge the status quo, think differently, you know, inspire and delight, be bold. Those aren't just words, like those are behaviors that are either ingrained in your humanity kind of, or they're not. And if they're not, and they're not things that you're passionate about, you're likely going to dismiss them because you have a different perspective of what's valuable. Doesn't mean it's not valuable. It just means for you, it's not as much of a priority or you don't fully understand it or grasp it. And so you either like appreciate it and are motivated by the fact that someone else has a different point of view that you admire, or because you don't understand it, you completely dismiss it. And honestly, that's a big reason why I think this podcast exists, is because curiosity should be something that we all embrace and engage. And I think a big factor of curiosity is humility. It's our willingness and ability to be humble enough to say, I don't know the answer to this, and I don't know what that looks and feels like, but that's okay. And that's kind of the point. Like, I don't need all the answers. Actually, I hope I don't have the answers. I hope instead I'm just willing to have the conversation and be the one that asks the question and like pauses for a moment and asks myself why and others around me why. Like, I challenge my own orthodoxies every single day, just as much as I challenge anyone else's. And I hope that people challenge me in the same way.
And creating, like, you have to have the space to be able to do that without fear of judgment, or
that psychological safety is
which
really
unfortunately I think isn't pervasive in a lot of corporate cultures, you know, which is why they're seen as kind of not innovative or slow moving, or, you know, it's because they've created this culture that that punishes people for asking certain questions or thinking.
It's a self-defense mechanism. Yeah. It's you get, as a part of scaling something, you need process and repetition. And if you break outside of that as a company wears on and as people come and go, if you don't have sort of that process in place, it's a really fascinating, spent a lot of my career thinking about that.
Think about traffic. That's what I always think about.
Sure.
Herd mentality. People would rather sit in traffic than find a way around, and not a way around that doesn't get you there any faster, but you're just moving. But there are oftentimes options. I've observed this so many times over. I think it's one of the best metaphors. Watch traffic patterns in a heavy traffic zone, or when an accident occurs. I have seen more people that just sit there and would rather go with the herd than try to take an alternate route. And I've also been the one that's taken an alternate route, and then all of a sudden other cars are following that because there's now a new path. But someone has to.
So you're the guy that jumps the medium, and you're that guy.
No, I definitely. Well, not that I don't have my truck anymore. Because ever since my truck's been stolen, no, I'm the guy waiting to find the exit to then take the proper exit off and do it in
it's a behavioral
in the right
science issue, though.
It absolutely
really
is. And so if we're expecting that to be any different in any other area of our lives, it's also kind of a big ask for humanity to say, challenge yourself, right? I mean, the pandemic has been an amazing example of challenging our orthodoxies in corporate America, or just in society for that matter, in so many ways. There's been a lot of horrific aspects about it, and it's unacceptable what some of the outcomes have been and the loss of life. And if we, try to think about some of the silver lining and the positives of it, I mean, think about how many orthodoxies have been just totally debunked. Like, I have to commute to work 5 days a week, and I have to be there from 9 to 5. And, I have to work this particular way, and I have to take a, 45-minute lunch or less, or I'm going to get in trouble. Life is fluid now. We live in a much more fluid society and reality has shifted. And what that means and the definition of what work is has shifted. And the role that work plays in our lives has shifted. I mean, as The Economist talked about the YOLO economy, which is a phenomenal article if you haven't checked it out yet. And people are literally just quitting because they're saying, this isn't what I want to do with my life. And it took a really horrific event for me to kind of wake up and realize, but we are challenging, I think, our orthodoxies a bit more right now in a way that is good and powerful.
I've never heard YOLO been painted in such a positive light.
It's so great. Yeah.
I was really excited about it.
Yeah. Well,
This is
went back about 10 years, but that's cool. I dig that.
Yeah.
We're reinventing YOLO.
Yeah, it's back.
It's back.
I mean, you can thank The Economist for it. It went from, the rap game to The Economist. It's totally manifested itself in a whole new way. And for those who do not know, you only live once is YOLO. Just want to make sure we're clear
We'll
on
put that
what
in the
that
show
means.
notes, Brad, the definition.
We just want to make sure everyone's going to put the notes in there. Y period, O period, L period, O period. Very grammatically correct.
I will say, though, just sort of in an effort to be controversial, is a bit of what you're describing. That's not evenly distributed across all of the workforce.
Not at all
in the country.
Yeah,
so
that's
there
a
is
great point.
a select group of workers that have the benefit of being flexible. Yep. And that have the ability to sort of uproot and relocate. And we're seeing a lot of that, like, sort of great migration happening over the last year and a half as people realize, hey, I can just work anywhere there's an internet connection. But
that's a really good
disparity.
Point. Yeah.
In the manufacturing world, in my day job, we've got, people who they can't work from home because they're working in a chemistry lab or they're building something tangible. And that creates this, it's a broad brushstrokes, but kind of a white collar, blue collar kind of disparity.
Yeah.
And it's something that if we're not careful about and mindful of in terms of how we're solving for and distributing that, the benefits of that. I saw it manifest on, we're always on these Zoom calls and stuff, and we're lucky enough to be in these kinds of roles. And someone was, poolside on a Zoom call with like the manufacturing organization. And it's like, here we are grinding it out with like extra PPE and masks and all this stuff. And like here, this product manager's poolside kind of thing. And so, it's that pendulum sort of will continue.
It furthers the divide almost in a sense, right? I mean, think about those that work in the food service industry. I mean, heroes, right? Like what they've done throughout the past year and a half plus at this point. I mean, amazing. And I don't know if they get enough credit for what they've been able to do. People that work for Amazon and UPS and FedEx and others. I mean, they've delivered packages and done logistics and distribution. That's been incredibly important for societies to continue to function, right? That's right. I think that's a really good point. It's very relevant, and honestly, because in the article, you could tell it was very pointed at a specific audience because they even reference things like, you're behind your MacBook Pro. Okay, well, a lot of people don't have MacBook Pros, so I think they were very intentional with who they were speaking to around the YOLO economy for sure. And I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, I'm not trying to like value signal here or anything. It's just sort of an interesting sort of topic.
Well, it's good to be mindful of all kinds of kinds.
And from a trend standpoint, where is that going to lead? And whose minds are we leaving out of the conversation in terms of that practical, tangible application is something that we've got to be deliberate about in terms of who's around the metaphorical table. Are we creating these sort of kind of divides unintentionally, just given the nature of kind of that work? And I think how quickly that has accelerated is somewhat startling over the last year and a half.
The acceleration of the acceleration factor, which I've first heard from Peter Diamandis, I think was really fascinating pre-pandemic, but seeing it manifest itself throughout the pandemic has made it even more relevant than ever, because so many things have been accelerated that we never imagined possible. And I think we've realized how globally interconnected we really are. Yeah. And that is our reality. And so it's, what do we do with it rather than trying to spend time and energy saying that it is or isn't.
Right. That's right. That's awesome.
I think that to what you were saying about the kind of the divide or the disparity that this kind of new reality has created, where some people have to be at work and others have maybe the luxury or the ability because of the nature of their work to do it remotely. I think being like really intentional about focusing on kind of the value that we're creating and how we can best generate and create that value, whether it be, I have to be at a certain location, physical location, to do certain tasks that my job requires of me, or being virtual. Because I think for a long time, it's just, we've made a lot of sort of blanket assumptions around value, which is actually resulted in the contrary of that, which is waste and, just a lot of bloat and, excessive, like, why do we need such a massive office building? Or why do we, why do I need to waste time in traffic, 2 hours out of my day in some commute just because I'm expected to be somewhere that I don't actually have to be at? So I think there's like definitely multiple layers to that, conversation,
which raises a lot of questions, right? Hopefully a lot of curiosity. I mean, kind of pun aside, truly, I think it's like, what is the future of physical space in urban environments? What are we doing with that physical space? Because we may not need as much of what we have. You look at like very dense cities like in New York, you look at less dense cities like Houston, 4th in population, 89th in density. Clearly we're a lot less dense. However, we have a significant amount of real estate as well. And wherever you are around the country in those more urban environments, what are we doing with that real estate? Like, can we repurpose it to vertical farming? That'd be amazing to think about the role that existing infrastructure could play in a more circular economy, in a more sustainable world. What does that look and feel like? And how do we even start that journey?
A lot of new
asking the
problems
questions. See?
Yeah, we got to start with the questions.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
I love it.
This has been amazing.
Yeah,
and honestly, I think
there was our part 2 right there.
Yeah, there's sort of like a little,
I think
like,
some of
behind
our
the scenes,
B-roll was
maybe.
almost better than
better
some
get
of
some
our...
of your stuff in there, because that was, you said some good stuff after our first stop.
That's how it happens, because like now we're in a natural flow, so now we're
That's
just
what I like to
riffy.
sort of like do a little, like, let's, because
I bet some of this will make it in.
Quite what's going on, so I pulled the mic back. I was like,
well,
maybe
both
we're
of y'all
still...
did, and I was like, well, as soon as you started talking afterwards, I was like, no, we're not done. Like, this is actually this is the meaty content we've been looking for.
Yeah, exactly. Onward